What's good, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving headfirst into a story that's setting the geopolitical world on fire. China's ramping up its military support for Iran, and it's got everyone talking. We're talking beefed up air defenses and, hold up, potentially even supplying Iran with cutting-edge warplanes like the J-10C. Yeah, you heard that right. The internet's buzzing with wild headlines like China just made Israel's air force useless. Is this legit or just clickbait? Let's break it all down, unpack the tech, the rivalries, and what this means for the power struggle in the Middle East. So, grab your snacks, hit that like button to show some love, and let's jump into this wild ride of global power plays. Don't forget to subscribe and ring that bell so you don't miss a thing. Let's do this.
Ceasefire continues to hold. There are questions about what comes next. What's the current state of Iran's nuclear capabilities? And what will those reported talks between Iran and the US actually achieve?
Tehran's ally China is helping the Islamic Republic to replenish its defense capabilities. Reports suggest that Iran now possesses Chinese surface-to-air missile batteries. According to local media reports, the deliveries of Chinese surface-to-air missile batteries occurred after Iran-Israel ceasefire took effect on the 24th of June.
First off, let's set the stage. Iran's air defenses have been in the spotlight ever since its 12-day conflict with Israel last month, where Israeli F-35s and US stealth bombers like the B-2 tore through Iranian airspace with what some reports described as near impunity. Iran's aging fleet of Cold War-era jets, think F-14 Tomcats and MiG-29s, and its patchwork of Russian S-300s and homegrown Bavar 373 systems couldn't keep up. The Israeli Air Force's dominance exposed a glaring vulnerability. Iran's skies were wide open. Enter China, Iran's biggest oil customer and a rising military powerhouse, stepping in with what looks like a lifeline. Reports from sources like Middle East Eye and Pravda suggest that since the ceasefire on June 24th, China has delivered advanced air defense systems, possibly including the HQ-9B, and is in talks to supply J-10C fighter jets. This isn't just a small arms deal. It's a strategic move that could reshape how Iran defends itself and how its rivals, particularly Israel, plan their next steps.
Yeah, this actually makes sense for Iran because this actually even on this was even talked about on the Chinese social media, while the 12-day war was going on. What they were saying? They're saying, Iran has a strong spear, meaning they got their missiles, but they have a weak shield because, their airspace was still wide open. Israel were bombing them. And in the end, the Israel bombing was actually affecting Iranian missile launches because it was Israeli F-35 were starting to hunt missile launchers on the western side of Iran. And so what Iran now, during the ceasefire, their top priority is actually rebuild their air defense system so they can protect their missile launchers in the future if a future conflict breaks out. And this is where, Iran did have a deal with Russia for S-300 and then S-400, and I don't know why they haven't been delivered.
Neither do I. I don't know
I don't know. But Russia right now, they have their problem of their own. Well, obviously, Russia's top priority currently is Ukraine. I mean, that for them, that's existential struggle they're focusing on. So maybe just simply the Russian defense industry does not have the bandwidth to come up with that. But China would have no problem. According to Western media, China have an overcapacity problem, right? So China has no problem. There's no supply side issue on producing defense.
So what's the deal with these Chinese air defense systems? Let's get into the juicy details. The HQ-9B is the star of the show here, a long-range surface-to-air missile SAM system that's often compared to Russia's S-300 or even the US Patriot system. This bad boy can engage targets up to 200 kilometers away with a radar that's got some serious chops for tracking stealth aircraft. Yes, even those sneaky F-35s Israel loves to fly. The HQ-9B uses active electronically scanned array, AESA radar, which is a big deal because it's harder to jam and can track multiple targets at once, from cruise missiles to drones to fighter jets.
China was going to export their Hongqi HQ air defense system to Turkey several years ago. This was shut down. This was killed by Washington because Washington really did not like that, and so Washington killed that deal. And so China is ready to export its air defense system. In fact, China did export its air defense system to Pakistan, and in fact, the latest performance of Chinese weapon system during the Pakistan-Indian conflict may have convinced the Iranian officials to pursue the weapon purchase from China. Because the Chinese weapons are cost effective. They don't cost nearly as much as the Western systems, and there will be no supply issue. China can just keep on rolling them off the assembly line, and Iran right now, they don't have much time to waste. Their goal is to build up their air defense as quickly as possible. This is I think it makes perfect sense for them to go to China. And recently, Iran defense minister went to China for SCO, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization meeting, and that was a perfect opportunity for him to do the shopping. I mean, if that's what they had in mind, that was a perfect opportunity. There's talking about they might even get the J-10C fighter jet from China.
I saw that.
Because this is actually pretty big.
Posts on social media and reports from sites like Military Watch magazine have speculated that Iran's recent acquisitions include multiple batteries of these systems, paid for with oil shipments, since China imports nearly 90% of Iran's crude. This oil for arms barter is a clever workaround for sanctions, and it's deepening the Tehran-Beijing bromance. The HQ-9B's ability to counter modern threats could make it tougher for Israel to waltz into Iranian airspace, like it did last month, forcing planners in Tel Aviv to rethink their strategies. But the HQ-9B isn't the only system in China's arsenal that could beef up Iran's defenses. There's chatter about the HQ-22, a slightly less advanced but still potent SAM system with a range of about 170 kilometers. It's cheaper, easier to deploy, and still packs a punch against non-stealth aircraft and missiles. Then there's the FL-2000B, a short-range system designed to swat down drones and low-flying threats, which is critical given Israel's heavy use of drones in the 12-day war. The Times of Israel noted Israel's Rising Lion operation leaned heavily on drones, including quadcopters and micro-drones for precision strikes inside Iranian territory. If Iran can layer these systems, HQ-9B for long-range, HQ-22 for mid-range, and FL-2000B for close-in defense, it could create a multi-tiered shield that makes penetrating its airspace a lot riskier. This isn't just about hardware. It's about building a network that integrates radar, command systems, and missile batteries to cover Iran's vast territory, from nuclear sites to military bases. Now let's talk about why these matters for the balance of power. Iran's air defenses have historically relied on a mix of Russian tech like the S-300 PMU-2 and its own Bavar 373, which is decent but struggles against cutting-edge stealth platforms. The Israeli strikes showed just how outmatched these systems were against modern threats. China's systems, particularly the HQ-9B, could close that gap. Military analysts cited in sources like Defense Security Asia argue that the HQ-9B's advanced radar and long-range missiles could challenge non-stealth platforms like Israel's F-15s and F-16s, and even give F-35s a harder time. Pair that with China's airborne warning and control systems, AWACS, which Iran is reportedly eyeing, and you've got a system set up where Iran could integrate these systems effectively. The challenge isn't just about getting the gear, it's about training crews, maintaining the systems, and linking them into a cohesive defense network. Iran's got experience with Russian tech, but Chinese systems have different standards, and integrating them with existing platforms like the Bavar 373 or Karar drones could be tricky. Posts on X, like one from Akalja on June 25, 2025, suggest Iran's banking on China's overcapacity to rebuild its defenses quickly, but this isn't an overnight fix. It'll take time to train personnel and optimize these systems for Iran's rugged terrain and sprawling military sites.
Private Chelsea Manning and Julian Assange, if you actually go back to 2009, there are some really significant leaks about the IAEA and its incoming director, Yukiya Amano. It turns out that according to those leaks, Jeffrey Piat, I don't know if you remember him. He was the U.S. diplomat who was on the line with Victoria Nuland plotting the coup in the Maidan in 2014, basically saying who was going to be the leader of Ukraine after they overthrow its elected government. Before that role, he was, prior to being U.S. ambassador in Kiev, he was the U.S. charge at the IAEA. And there are State Department cables showing him stating that Amano has promised that he will be on the American side that can support his nomination, and that he will maintain ambiguity in public but do what the U.S. wants in private, particularly on Iran. This is 2009. Amano was then replaced by Grossi after suffering a mysterious illness and dying. And Grossi, Rafael Grossi, the current director of the IAEA, has announced his intention to run for Secretary General of the United Nations. Now, if you want to be the head of the UN, you need the US on your side. You need Germany and all the European powers, basically P5+1, who were in charge of negotiating with Iran, when in fact the IAEA as a multilateral institution should have been in charge. And so Grossi clearly has been groomed as well by the United States and by Israel for this role, and was never going to be an honest broker with Iran. And it's obvious because of what he did just days before Israel attacked. He introduced a resolution for the first time declaring Iran in violation of the Non-Proliferation Treaty, which set the stage for Israel to stage this attack and claim that they're rescuing the world from Iran's evil nuclear program.
Speaking of those J-10C jets, they're another piece of this puzzle that's got everyone talking. The J-10C, nicknamed the Vigorous Dragon or even Rafale Killer, is a 4.5 generation multi-role fighter with AESA radar, PL-15 long-range missiles, and solid electronic warfare capabilities. Reports from India Today and Newsweek indicate Iran's in high-level talks to buy dozens of these jets, maybe 36 or even 40, according to some social media posts, after a failed deal for Russian Su-35s fell through. The J-10C is a big upgrade over Iran's creaky F-4 Phantoms and MiG-29s, which barely got off the ground during Israeli aggression. Its delta-wing canard design makes it nimble in dogfights, and those PL-15 missiles could outrange some Western counterparts, giving Iran a credible counter to Israel's air superiority. A viral post on social media on July 1st even claimed Iran's already received 40 J-10Cs, though there's no official confirmation from Tehran or Beijing. If true, this could narrow the tech gap with Israel's F-35s, though Bulgarian military notes it won't fully tip the scales given terrorist Israel's stealth and sensor fusion edge. So does this make the Israeli Air Force useless? Yes, quite literally. Israel's F-35s, backed by US support and advanced drones, still hold a qualitative edge, as The Atlantic and The Times of Israel detailed in their coverage of Israel's dominance in the last battle. The J-10C and HQ-9B are serious upgrades, but they're not a silver bullet. Israel's got experience bypassing advanced defenses. Plus, Israel's diplomatic push is pressuring China to rethink this deal, leveraging Beijing's economic clout over Iran. Still, Iran's moves signal a longer-term shift. China's not just selling weapons, it's betting on Iran to counter Western influence in the region. This pivot also has broader implications. China's support, facilitated by oil for arms deals, reflects a geopolitical alignment against the US and its allies. Middle East Eye and J-Feed report that Arab states and the White House are aware of Iran's buildup, which could complicate future US or Israeli strikes. Iran's also diversifying away from Russia, frustrated by delays in Su-35 deliveries, as this could pull Iran deeper into China's orbit, reshaping Middle East alliances. But there's a catch. Sanctions, technical integration, and China's cautious arms export stance, as its defense ministry emphasized, could slow things down. So what's the bottom line? China's aid is a big deal for Iran, giving it tools to challenge Israel's air dominance and protect its skies. The HQ-9B and J-10C could make future Israeli operations riskier but useless? That's not even a stretch. Iran's playing catch-up, and while China's tech is a boost, it's flipping the board just yet. The real story is the long game, how this strengthens Iran's resilience and shifts regional power dynamics. Keep your eyes on this one because the Middle East skies are only getting hotter. Thank you so much for watching. As the world heats up, we're on a mission to cut through the noise for you. We're diving deep into the news, piecing together the stories that matter, and delivering fresh, unfiltered perspectives straight from the heart of it all. But we can't do this alone. The YouTube algorithm is a beast, and it's working overtime to bury voices like ours. Your support is our lifeline. Every like, every subscription fuels our fight to break through the echo chamber of Western-biased media. Join us, amplify our voice, and help us reach more people craving real, diverse truths from across the globe. Hit that like button, subscribe, and let's shake up the narrative together.